Chapter 1074. So scary. This Lung Fifan still has the true Shura slash. Earlier, he killed Xia Shaoshan with one slash. And now he killed Yang Ting with one slash. Yang Ting is ranked second on the Sky King list, but this time, he is not even in the top 3. True Shura slash, this must be the evolved version of Shura slash. Could it be that there is still the true lifeless Shura slash? Everyone discussed spiritedly, making guesses in their hearts. Lung Fifan, who had defeated Yang Ting with the true Shura slash, landed on the stage with ease. Clank. His blade returned to its scabbard. Yang Ting turned around and looked at Yi Chun and Ajio. This is so interesting. He has actually reached the 3rd level of the selfless realm. This is a realm that even I have not reached. The peerless king's eyes flashed with excitement as he rubbed his chin. Battle after battle began, and battle after battle ended. When it came to the 9th battle of the 17th round, the crowd was in an uproar. The 9th battle was between Ajio and Yi Chun. Without Lung Fifan, this battle would definitely be the most intense one, and the one that would decide the winner. Nobody had expected the two to meet so soon. The peerless King Ajio is proficient in fist arts, palm arts, finger arts, and leg arts. It is said that he is also studying spear arts. In terms of the variety of arts he has learned, no one can beat him. However, up until now, he has only used the palm art, the galaxy godly palm, and the finger art, the extreme wind and water art. Even Xia Shaoshan could not force him to use his 3rd art. Yi Chun is amazing as well. One man and one sword, he made it to the top 3. Even Lung Fifan was not as amazing as him. The peerless Ajio and the supreme sword art Yi Chun. The two were about to battle, which made everyone's heart beat faster. They could not imagine what would happen next, and who would gain the upper hand. But one thing was for sure. This would be a battle that they would regret for the rest of their lives if they missed it. On the battling platform, Ajio and Yi Chun stood facing each other. Although the two didn't deliberately release their auras, everyone didn't know whether it was an illusion or not. But in their eyes, the figures of Yi Chun and Ajio were getting bigger and bigger, filling up their line of sight. It was as if the two of them were the only people left in the world, and everything else had disappeared. What a powerful mental pressure. Yan Feihua sucked in a breath of cold air. The two's essence, qi, and spirit were so powerful that it made one's hair stand on end. Before they even made a move, the spectators were already affected. As illusionists, Li Yifeng and Ji Qingyue had serious expressions on their faces. Naturally, they would not be a match for Ajio and Yi Chun. However, they did not expect that their spiritual cultivation had reached such a level. Just their spiritual cultivation alone was enough to create subtle hallucinations. This was a testament to their strength. The moment has finally come. Let's begin. Ajio had been looking forward to fighting with Yi Chun for a long time. When he first saw Yi Chun, he knew that the other party would not be a simple person. He would most likely be the one to walk to the end. Yes, let's begin. Yi Chun also longed for a battle with the Jew. The meaning of life was to challenge. If there was no opponent, it would be very sad and life would lose its meaning. Pop. Pop. Both of them released their domains at almost the same time. Aju's domain was dazzling and colorful, like a dreamy starry sky. Yi Chun's sword domain was full of sharpness and fierceness. When the two clashed, the void resounded with the sound of countless bubbles bursting. Galaxy Godly Palm. As soon as the domain was released, Aju immediately launched an attack. The blue galaxy-like palm energy roared and rushed towards Yi Chun, like a waterfall flowing across the galaxy. Rip. The sound of cloth tearing rang out. Yi Chun held the Demon Slayer sword with both hands and slashed the blue galaxy. Aju purely wanted to test Yi Chun's bottom line. He repeatedly performed the Galaxy Godly Palm. With him as the center, countless blue galaxies rushed towards Yi Chun, wave after wave endlessly. Yi Chun's movement technique was elegant and swift. Every time he moved, he would definitely split open a blue galaxy. Gradually, Yi Chun was less than 10 miles away from Aju. Absolute feng shui. Seeing that the Galaxy Godly Palm could not do anything to Yi Chun, Aju's expression did not change. He raised his right hand's index and middle fingers and jabbed towards Yi Chun. A sense of danger flashed through Yi Chun's mind as he shifted dozens of meters to the side, avoiding that finger attack. He looked sideways and saw a bright white light that was sharper than any blade. The white light landed on the surface of the platform. Swoosh! 100-meter-long crack appeared on the surface of the platform. Such a strong killing power. The second martial art is already so powerful. Then what about the third and fourth? Everyone was shocked. The contest stage was not an ordinary object. It was already amazing to leave a mark on it, but a Jew was actually able to cut a 100-meter-long crack on it. Xia Xiaoshan raised his eyebrows. He was defeated by this absolute feng shui. Although it was a finger technique, it was sharper than any martial art. Even his killing intent oscillation fists could be cut open. Poochie poochie poochie, his figure flickered. Both of Agio's hands were like butterflies flying through flowers. One after another, sharp white aura cut towards Yi Chen. The power is not bad. Yi Chen's figure flickered as well. A dark green sword curtain appeared. He slashed horizontally and vertically. The entire center of the contest stage was under Yi Chen's attack range. Although that sharp white aura was extremely sharp and could cut through anything, compared to the dark green sword curtain, it was still a bit weaker. Of course, Yi Chen had also increased the merciless water and fire's power to 90%. Ding! Ding! Dang! The two fought from the sky to the ground, and from the ground to the edge of the contest stage. The battle was extremely intense. The absolute feng shui cannot do anything to Yi Chen. Now a Jew should be using his third martial art, right? Someone said with anticipation. Of course, but I wonder if the third martial art is a fist art or a leg art. It should be a fist art. It is said that some people have seen a Jew use a fist art, but no one has ever seen a Jew use a leg art. It has appeared. It is indeed a fist art. Cries of surprise resounded. On the contest stage, a scarlet halo appeared behind a Jew. As the halo appeared, his aura soared. He punched out, shaking the entire contest stage. The scarlet flame light exploded like a star exploding, or a supernova. Red giant star fist. Using a fist art to create a star explosion? A strange light flickered in Yi Chen's eyes. Although the majority of powerful life and death kings could shatter stars, it did not mean that they could ignore the might of a star explosion. For example, when a bomb did not explode, one could shatter it with a stomp. But once the bomb exploded, one would be killed in an instant. Now it is time to test your bottom line, a Jew said inwardly. Seeing the flame light getting closer and closer, Yi Chen's face did not have the slightest trace of panic or impatience. Holding the demon slaughtering sword tightly, Yi Chen raised it over his head and let out a low roar before slashing out. Merciless water and fire's full power was unleashed. Bang! This time, it was not a dark green sword screen, but a dark green light sphere. The dark green light sphere shot out, annihilating everything in its path, including that powerful flame light. Not good. A Jew was startled. It was the same sword art, but this one was several times more powerful than the previous one. His red giant fist couldn't stop it in the slightest. Subduing Dragon Divine Kick. Without any hesitation, a Jew used a leg art, which was also his most powerful martial art, Subduing Dragon Divine Kick. Subduing Dragon Divine Kick, as the name implied, this leg art's might could even subdue giant dragons. Giant dragons were not limited to iron-armored giant dragons. In fact, iron-armored giant dragons were only at the bottom of the giant dragons. They were ordinary giant dragons, and above them were crystal giant dragons, golden giant dragons, and dark giant dragons. The shadow of the leg, which was filled with a metallic luster, was as long as a street. The leg kicked the dark green ball of light. Rumble! A powerful explosion spread out, and the steel leg shadow shattered inch by inch. Countless sword chi slashed over. The dark green light sphere looked like a light sphere from the outside, but in fact, it was a light sphere formed by countless sword chi. Once the light sphere was destroyed, one would have to face the light sphere's decomposition and the countless sword chi's attack. A Jew didn't have time to use any martial arts to block the sword chi. He could only cross his arms and curl up his body, trying to reduce the area of attack on his body. Chi, chi, chi. One after another, the sword chi slashed on a Jew's protective Zhen Yuan. Gradually, the protective Zhen Yuan became thinner and more unstable. With a pop, the protective Zhen Yuan was broken. In the next moment, countless sparks appeared on Aju's body, which was caused by the friction between the sword chi and his body. What kind of sword art is this? It broke through Aju's red giant fist, and subduing dragon divine kick in a row. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I can't even imagine how powerful this sword attack is. It seems like Aju won't be able to hold on for much longer. In everybody's eyes, Aju was already at the end of his rope. Numerous sword scars appeared on his body. These sword scars were wriggling as if they were alive. Of course, everybody was also amazed at Aju's powerful defense, which seemed to be even higher than Yang Ting's. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been torn apart by the sword chi long ago. Late rank 6 spirit body. Yi Chen immediately guessed that Aju's spirit body had already reached late rank 6. A rank 6 spirit body had a powerful ability to absorb damage. For example, Su Qing's spirit body had reached rank 6. However, Su Qing was only at early rank 6, and his cultivation base had not reached the first layer of life and death realm. He was far from being comparable to Aju. Raising the demon slaughtering sword once again, Yi Chen slashed at Aju. Swish! The dark green light sphere was as fast as a flickering light. The closer it got to the opponent, the larger its diameter became. Trying to dodge it with one's own speed was almost impossible. First of all, the light sphere's speed was close to light speed. Adding on the fact that the range of the light sphere was extremely large, one would have to surpass light speed to avoid it. Otherwise, one would inevitably be affected by the aftershock. Just as Aju was about to be defeated by this sword strike, 3 Ajus suddenly appeared in front of him. The 3 Ajus stood in a row, from left to right, and separately displayed the Galaxy Divine Palm, Extreme Feng Shui, and Red Giant Star Fist. The 3 great martial arts joined together and shattered the dark green light ball. Full battle power. Yi Chen shockingly discovered that these 3 Aegis possessed the same battle power as the main body. There was no difference at all. The combined attack of 3 Aegis could indeed shatter his merciless water and fire. Chapter 1075. Very powerful. You actually forced out my martial phantom. A powerful chi energy erupted, and the wriggling sword scars on Aju's body flew out like swimming fish, revolving around Aju. In the next moment, they disappeared without a trace. Taking a step forward, Aju's figure flickered and appeared on the right side of the 3 Ajus, standing in the 4th position. The 4 Ajus had the same aura and battle strength. 8 gazes locked onto Yi Chen. Not a will projection or a consciousness projection. What are they? Yi Chen creased his brows. These 3 Ajus that suddenly appeared couldn't be a will projection or a consciousness projection. The will projection only had 10% of the battle power of the main body, while the consciousness projection only had 30%. However, these 3 Ajus had the same battle power as the main body, giving off an intense feeling of danger. What? For Ajus? 4 times the battle strength. One is already so powerful, what would 4 be like? Is this Aju's true battle strength? Simply unimaginable. The spectators were stupefied, their faces full of disbelief. It wasn't that they hadn't seen powerful killer moves before. A 7th layer life and death titled Monarch's killer move was 10 times, or even 100 times stronger than theirs. However, they had never seen a killer move that could produce 3 doppelgangers with the same battle strength as the main body. Yi Chen, if you don't have a stronger ability, then this is the end. The 4 Ajus simultaneously spoke and launched their moves. Star River Palm, Absolute Wind and Water, Red Giant Fist, and Tyrannical Subduing Dragon Divine Kick. 4 killer moves bombarded Yi Chen side by side. Previously, the 3 killer moves combined could already break through merciless water and fire. Now the combined might of the 4 killer moves was at least several times stronger than merciless water and fire, and this was only because of the internal friction. As you wish. Yi Chen's fluttering black hair and clothes suddenly stopped. The chaotic chi energy in the surroundings seemed to have been cut off and stopped in the void. Within Yi Chen's sword domain, everything was in a state of stillness. The only thing that didn't stop was Yi Chen's thoughts in himself. Instant sword domain. The sword domain derived from the momentary brilliance had the effect of freezing space. Ajio's 4 killer moves instantly entered Yi Chen's sword domain. In the next moment, the 4 killer moves slowed down but did not stop. The distance is too far. Yi Chen gave up on using momentary brilliance, and chose to use merciless water and fire to break the 4 killer moves that had their speed greatly reduced. What is this? The ability to stop space? A strange look flashed in Ajio's eyes. That's right, it was this ability that broke my 9-star alignment. Wuxia suddenly understood. His strength was far inferior to Jiao and Yi Chen. Therefore, at that time, Yi Chen had only slightly used this ability. Since the process had only lasted for a split second, it was so fast that he didn't even have time to react before disappearing. Thus, he couldn't figure out what went wrong. The ability to stop space? Interesting, but it does not seem to be able to stop my killer move. Ajio regained his composure and said, Indeed, Yi Chen did not deny it. Instant sword domain was ultimately derived from the momentary brilliance, and the ability to stop space was less than 30% of the momentary brilliance's strength. It was more than enough to deal with others, but it was far from enough to deal with an expert like Ajio. It could not completely stop the opponent's killer move. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Phantoms flashed, and the 4 Ajios pulled apart from each other and attacked Yi Chen from 4 different angles. Majestic palm energy, sharp white light, explosive fist energy, and extremely destructive leg shadows. Even if the 4 killer moves were separated, they still had great power, and defense alone could not block them. The jade green sword screen stretched horizontally, and Yi Chen broke the blue palm energy, sharp finger energy, and explosive fist energy. But that was all. Yi Chen could not block the most destructive leg shadow in time, and his left arm was kicked. The sound of bones breaking resounded, and Yi Chen's left arm was broken. Only the bones of the left arm were broken. Ajio's eyes narrowed. He knew how powerful the dragon-subduing divine kick was. This was a leg art that could subdue a giant dragon of the same realm. But when it kicked Yi Chen, it actually only broke the bones of his left arm. How strong was his defense? Even he and Yang Ting seemed to be much weaker than him in terms of defense. Yi Chen shook his head. He naturally knew that his defense was unbelievably strong, and this was mainly because his immortal sword intent had already reached the 7th step, which was equivalent to an ordinary 8th step sword intent, and an ordinary 8th step sword intent could automatically form a protective sword intent. Compared to a 6th step spirit body, the protective sword intent was even stronger. Although it was not as strong as a 7th step spirit body, it was definitely equivalent to a peak 6th step spirit body. In addition, the sword domain also slowed down the attacking speed of the dragon-subduing divine kick, causing the power of this kick to decrease a lot. Being able to break the bones of his left arm with one kick was enough to prove the power of the dragon-subduing divine kick. Be careful, the broken bones of the left arm were just a small injury, and the martial will contained in it was not difficult to remove. After a breath, Yi Chen had already recovered. Raising the demon's slaughtering sword high up, Yi Chen slashed towards Ajio's body. Whoosh! The dark green light ball was like a light wave as it slashed out horizontally. Not good. Ajio immediately knew what Yi Chen was thinking. The opponent clearly knew the characteristics of the martial arts phantom. The other 3 Ajio could only use the galaxy palm, extreme wind and water fist, and only the main body could use the most powerful dragon-subduing divine kick. Therefore, the opponent chose to ignore the other 3 killing moves and attack his main body. Although he knew what Yi Chen was thinking, Ajio did not have a better way to deal with it. Facing Yi Chen's full power attack, Ajio chose to meet it head-on. The result was obvious. The dragon-subduing divine kick was not a match for the merciless water and fire. The leg shadow was destroyed, and Ajio was killed by countless sword chi, each of which contained a destructive sword intent that was extremely difficult to get rid of. Of course, Yi Chen also suffered from Ajio's counterattack. The other 3 Ajio's killing moves bombarded Yi Chen's body. The galaxy palm shattered Yi Chen's protective Zhen Yuan. The extreme wind and water fist cut open a wound on Yi Chen's body, and the red star fist scorched Yi Chen's chest black, emitting bursts of smoke. However, with the isolation of the protective sword intent, these injuries could not be any lighter. They only looked a bit battered, which was undoubtedly 10 times better than a Jiao. What kind of battle is this? One has 4 times the battle power, and the other has a defense even stronger than Yang Ting's. That sword move is even more powerful than all of a Jiao's killing moves. They're too strong. Only today did I understand the meaning of there's always someone better than you out there. In terms of attack, no one can compare to them. In terms of defense, no one can compare to them. They're simply 2 monsters among monsters. Everyone was already stunned. A Jiao's martial arts phantom let them know what battle power was, and Yi Chen's sword move and defense told them what the strongest attack and defense were. Chapter 1076. Ignoring the small injuries on his body, Yi Chen continued to attack Jiao with merciless water and fire. The dark green light sphere was like a peerless sword artist. Once it struck the opponent, it would erupt with millions of sword chi. Jiao had just expelled the destruction sword intent, and before he could recover, he was struck by the dark green light sphere and suffered countless sword chi cuts. If this goes on, I'll lose sooner or later. Although Jiao was confident in his defense, and his late 6th-step spirit body could absorb a portion of the damage, the sword chi was too powerful. The destruction sword intent contained within was like maggots in one's bones, becoming more and more difficult to remove. If this continued, the destruction sword intent would accumulate more and more, and only defeat awaited him. Seems like I can only enter Berserk realm. Making up his mind, Jiao's aura erupted. What? His battle strength can still increase? Look, Jiao's aura is changing. What a frightening aura. On the battling platform, the aura on Jiao's body instantly turned frightening. The originally pure Jin Yuan aura had now turned into a dark red ruthless aura. This aura was so frightening that it could cause people to hallucinate. It was as if countless demons were emerging from this aura, wanting to devour people. Not to mention contending against Jiao. Ordinary life and death kings wouldn't even be able to approach him. This frightening aura could make them fall into a nightmare. Along with the aura change, Jiao's eyes turned blood red, shooting out a blood beam several thousand meters long. It's even more berserk than my killing intent fist technique. Xia Xiaoshan creased his brows. Selfless berserk realm. Among the crowd, only Lu Wenxiu knew what was happening to Jiao. Selfless berserk realm was divided into 3 stages. The first stage was the ordinary stage, and the second stage had 2 paths: selfless heavenly eye and selfless body. Selfless berserk realm was not the 3rd stage of selfless realm, but a mutation of the 2nd stage. In order to enter this realm, one had to suffer an extremely powerful stimulation and fall into the selfless berserk realm. Yi Chen had once entered this realm, and now, he had 30 to 40% chance of doing so. However, Jiao had clearly reached the stage where he could use berserk realm. Jiao's eruption had undoubtedly caused the spectators to pant. They had not expected that Jiao would still have a trump card up his sleeve. The battle had progressed to this point, and it had already exceeded their imagination. They were completely unable to predict how the battle would develop. The strength of these 2 people far exceeded their level. Ha! Jiao roared, and the destructive sword intent attached to his body dissipated into nothingness. In the next moment, Jiao's figure flickered, and the 3 martial arts phantoms merged into his body, and then they transformed again. Yi Chen, take this. With bloodshot eyes, the 4 Jiaos attacked Yi Chen together. The energy has increased by several times. Yi Chen clearly sensed that the space-stopping power of the sword realm could no longer restrain the opponent's ace attack. Although the space-stopping power was powerful, it had its limits. Back when he had rushed through the dead end of Elysium, that 6th-level life and death realm demon king had easily broken through his space-stopping power. The reason was that the opponent's energy had already surpassed his space-stopping power. And now, Jiao's energy was also approaching this level. The combined ace attack was about to hit Yi Chen. Once hit, even if he had the immortal sword intent to protect his body, he would still be blasted into pieces. However, the opponent had a trump card, and so did Yi Chen. Instead of retreating, Yi Chen rushed forward. Is Yi Chen crazy? Everyone could not understand. Lung Fifen's eyes turned serious, and he was slightly confused. The Crimson Demon Slayer sword drew a mysterious trajectory in the void. As the trajectory was perfected, the void came to a stop inch by inch. At first, there was still chi energy flowing in all directions. But when the trajectory was completed, all the chi energy within 3,000 feet floated up, like dazzling auroras, like ribbons of light hanging in the air. Correspondingly, Agio's 4 ace attacks also gradually stopped. Although they were not completely still, there was no difference. They looked like crawling tortoises. Meanwhile, the tip of the demon slaughtering sword in Yi Chen's hand released an extremely dazzling radiance. This radiance was so resplendent that everyone was attracted by it, and their souls seemed to be sucked into it. Without a sound, the 4 ace attacks were destroyed. A crimson sword light cut through the void and slashed at Agio's chest. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere, as Agio was sent flying while spurting out blood. Space profound sword move. Agio was inwardly shocked, but he soon realized that Yi Chen's sword realm contained the space-stopping power. This power clearly came from the space profound, and the space-stopping power of this move was several times stronger than the sword realm. The distance is too far. Yi Chen shook his head. The range of the moment of glory was only 3,000 zhang, which was close to 20 li, and the distance between him and Agio was more than 20 li, so he was unable to affect the other party. In addition, the moment of glory had used up a lot of energy to defeat the 4 ace attacks, so only about 30% of the sword energy was left. If it was at a close distance, this sword could completely kill the other party. Whiz! As this thought flashed through his mind, Yi Chen quickly flashed out. With the help of the sword realm, his speed had reached his limit, and he was like a ray of sword light. I can't get too close to him. Agio borrowed the sword energy that had struck his body and frantically retreated. For a while, Yi Chen was actually unable to close the distance between them. Suddenly, Yi Chen shook his hand and threw out the demon slaughtering sword. With a flash of thought, the demon slaughtering sword transformed into 81 sword images, which then condensed into one and shot towards Agio. 9 returned to 1 sword art. With a clang, while retreating, Agio could only use 70 to 80% of his movement technique. The sword pierced through his protective true essence, and his body staggered, stopping for a moment. Clang! At this moment, a clear sword cry rang out. Agio only felt his vision blur, and then he lost consciousness. As expected of a heavenly king-grade sword, Yi Chen sized up the dragon spring sword in his hand. This was the first time he had used it against an enemy since it was completed. Needless to say, its power was several times stronger than the demon slaughtering sword. More importantly, using this sword to perform sword arts was extremely smooth, and he almost couldn't feel the existence of any resistance. Not to mention Agio. Even Yi Chen himself was very surprised. Can sword arts be this fast? The moment of glory could make space freeze, but for the spectators, they couldn't feel the power of space freezing. They only felt the scene suddenly stop, and the next moment, Agio was cut into pieces by the incomparably brilliant sword chi. Even the undying body couldn't reform his body, and when he reappeared, he was outside the battling platform. Agio lost. Yi Chen won. This was Yi Chen's 17th consecutive victory. Chapter 1077. I didn't expect King Peerless Agio to be unable to stop him. In my opinion, no one will be able to stop him in this divine trials. Yan Feihua said slowly as she sized up the somewhat despondent Agio. The Speed Wolf King next to him said, "Isn't there Lung Fifan?" Lung Fifan's true Azura slash had defeated Yang Ting with a single slash. Yan Feihua shook his head and said, "It's very difficult. Lung Fifan is known as the lifeless swordsman, and his saber art is well-tempered. But he may not be able to defeat Agio, let alone Yi Chen. Moreover, Yi Chen's defense is the best among everyone here. Just this point alone is enough to make people despair. It's very unlikely that Lung Fifan can defeat him." As a swordsman, Yi Chen not only had a strong attack, but his defense was also unparalleled. It could be said to be a miracle. Not only Yan Feihua, but most people also thought that Yi Chen was invincible. The 17th round ended, and the 18th round began. In this round, Yi Chen's opponent was Soul Breaker Spear Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao immediately admitted defeat. Soon Lung Fifan faced Agio. Audiobook had already recovered from the shadow of his defeat. He was not a person who took it to heart, but he did not believe that he had lost to Yi Chen. After going on stage, he became the unparalleled Audiobook again. Dragon subduing divine kick. True Shura slash. In the blink of an eye, the battle between the two of them had entered into a white-hot stage. Audiobook's dragon subduing divine kick was invincible and incomparably vigorous, possessing the might to subdue an enormous dragon, whereas Lung Fifan's true Azura slash had touched upon the third stage of the Inata state, possessing an unimaginable explosive force. The two killer moves collided together, causing the entire arena to shake incessantly. In the end, Audiobook cast out a martial art phantom, and the four Jios joined forces to attack Lung Fifan. True lifeless Azura slash. In addition to the true Azura chop, Lung Fifan also hit a terrifying killer move. With a flash of blade light, Audiobook's four killer moves were dispersed. Alright. Audiobook cheered loudly, his battle prowess soaring to the limit, instantly entering the Inata rampage state. After 5 minutes, Lung Fifan was defeated by Audiobook. For Yi Chen, the 19th round no longer holds any meaning. Everyone sighed with emotion. Lung Fifan had been defeated by Audiobook, and most likely, he would not be a match for Yi Chen. Martial artists had their own strengths and weaknesses, but that was only relative to a small number of people. Most people still spoke with their battle prowess. As expected in the 19th round, Lung Fifan lost to Yi Chen again. With this, the trials of God came to an end. The first place was Yi Chen. In second place was King Peerless Jiao. The third was the lifeless swordsman Lung Fifan. The fourth was tyrannical dragon Yang Ting. Fifth Xia Shaoshan. The sixth was the green lightning king Gu Qingxue. The seventh was the black destruction king, Zhou Jian. Eighth seamless illusionist Li Yifeng. The ninth was azure dragon swordsman Xiao Xiyu. Lu Wenxiu and Yin Feihua tied for 10th place. As for the others, they were teleported out the moment the last battle of the 19th round ended. It's over. The ranking this time has been overturned. There are two newcomers in the top 10. One is number 1, and the other is number 5. Zhou Jian, the Black Destruction King, was pushed down from number 3 to number 7. Azure Dragon Swordsman Xiao Xiyu is so powerful, but he is only number 9. Lu Wenxiu and Yin Feihua are the most dangerous, and they are tied for 10th place. Yeah, Audiobook is known to be unparalleled under the heavens. Unfortunately, Yi Chen's sword arts have surpassed that. 19 rounds, 19 wins. Not a single one of them could pose too much of a threat to him. Even Audiobook could only cause him some insignificant injuries. The strongest attack and the strongest defense. He deserves the title of number 1. Outside the Golden Gate, everyone was talking about it. As the eliminated ones, they were already satisfied to be able to see such a peak battle. Many of them even had an epiphany and had made great progress in their martial arts. Young Master Yi is number 1. Lan Xian'er was a bit dazed. Although she was full of confidence in Yi Chen, in her opinion, Yi Chen being in the top 5 was already amazing. Defeating Audiobook and becoming number 1 was something she had never expected. Sister, you really brought back an amazing person, Lan Xian'er murmured. Lan Xian'er murmured. If it wasn't for her sister Lan Xian'er, she definitely wouldn't have crossed paths with Yi Chen. Life was so wonderful. Every action had its own cause and effect. The ship of God arrived. The eliminated ones boarded the ship and were sent in the direction of God's planet. Congratulations, you are really amazing. You are the swordsman with the most potential I have ever seen. Audiobook walked over and greeted Yi Chen. Same to you. Your martial path phantom is what surprised me. Martial path phantom was a divine technique. As long as one's combat ability was strong enough, the martial path phantom created would be strong enough. It would never be outdated. I obtained this martial art from a strange place. It has already been integrated into my blood. Audiobook revealed some information about martial path phantom. Your momentary brilliance shocked me. The ability to stop space has already involved the rules of the universe. The power of the rules was extremely powerful. As the space profound progressed, the ability to stop space would inevitably become more frightening. Once Yi Chen's space profound reached completion, it was unknown what realm it would reach. Yi Chen was about to speak when the sky suddenly darkened. Unknowingly, a huge ship of God appeared in the sky. The ship of God is here. Aju raised his head. I wonder what kind of place God's paradise is. Yi Chen had heard from Lan Xian, that after passing the God trial field, one would have the qualifications to enter God's paradise. However, she didn't know what kind of place it was, or what miraculous things were inside. Lu Wenxia walked over and explained, God's paradise is a place that can raise one's strength. At the same time, it is also the place with the most geniuses. The God trial field is held once every 10 years. Every 10 years, about 10 geniuses will enter God's paradise. My brother is one of them. According to him, in God's paradise, one who is over 500 years old, or whose cultivation base has reached the 7th layer can no longer stay. Therefore, in the past 500 years, there should be about 500 people in God's paradise. But according to my brother, there are only 300 now. Can't one leave God's paradise without being over 500 years old, or at the 7th layer? Yi Chen asked. Lu Wenxia said, that's not the case. Apart from the first time, one has to pay a certain amount of Xinbi to enter and leave God's paradise. Xinbi is the currency of God's paradise, and is indispensable. Xinbi? Yi Chen currently had 29 Xinbi. Being first in the running competition gave him 10 Xinbi, and winning one battle gave him 1 Xinbi. After 19 rounds, Yi Chen had 19 Xinbi, making it 29 Xinbi in total. At this moment Ajia said solemnly, here we might be at the top. But in God's paradise we might be at the bottom. I've long been looking forward to God's paradise, but I don't know the real situation inside. As he spoke, Ajio's solemn eyes burned with an intense fighting spirit. My brother said that although God's paradise can raise one's strength, it is also very cruel. Slowly letting out a breath, Lu Wenxia said, a flight of stairs extended from the ship of God, and the 11 of them walked up. Soon the ship of God took off, flying toward an unknown place. Chapter 1078. On the deck of the boat of God, the 11 of them were talking about the paradise of God. As far as I know, the paradise of God has an Upanishad tower. Aside from time and space, it has every kind of ultimacy. As long as you pay a certain amount of Xinbi, you can enter the Upanishad tower to study. Inside, almost every genius has completed 4 or 5 ultimacies. The speaker was Yin Feihua. The Upanishad tower requires Xinbi, but there are other places where you can get Xinbi, such as the God of War Pagoda, the Survival Pagoda, and the Hunting Pagoda. In short, Xinbi is very useful in the paradise of God. With Xinbi, your strength can increase by leaps and bounds. Without Xinbi, you can't even take a step forward, and you'll soon be surpassed by others. Green Lightning King Gu Qingxua also said, the paradise of God is good, but once you go there, you'll know that there are always people better than you. If nothing unexpected happens, we'll be taught a lesson the first time we enter the paradise of God. This lesson isn't an insult, but a lesson to let us know that we're just an ordinary member of the paradise of God. There's nothing to be proud of. Zhou Jing glanced at Yi Chen. Yi Chen smiled faintly. The other party was probably telling him that even though he was first in the divine trial field, he was only first among them. In the paradise of God, there was no lack of geniuses. Moreover, those geniuses cultivated 10 times more than them. Not long after, the ship of God stopped. Below them was a dreamlike paradise. The paradise was boundless, and there were misty clouds above it. The entire paradise was faintly discernible, like a mirage. It could be seen, but it could not be touched. It was very mysterious. When the stairs passed through the clouds, rippling patterns appeared. It wasn't hard to imagine that without the stairs, even if they could see the paradise, they wouldn't be able to enter it. Let's go down. Ajia was the first to go down. The long stairs extended all the way to the ground. As they walked down, the 11 of them looked around. What a majestic tower. That must be the God of War Pagoda. There are people fighting over there. They seem to be holding sticks. Are they hitting balls with sticks? That's a thunderbolt ball. It can train attack speed, reaction speed, and strength techniques. To the 11 of them, everything in the paradise of God was so novel. Their hearts, which were as calm as still water, began to ripple. Buzz! The moment the 11 of them landed, a figure of light surrounded by a halo appeared in front of them. Hello. I am the god of the paradise of God, the manager of this place. Welcome to the paradise of God. Gods! Everyone was shocked. Although godly spirits were not real gods, they had the word God in their names, so they were certainly not ordinary. They wondered whether a godly spirit or a ninth-layer life and death realm warrior would be stronger. From the moment you stepped into the paradise of God, you became a member of the paradise of God. The trial talisman is your paradise badge. It has many uses, as you will find out in the future. In the paradise of gods, there are no mandatory rules. Everything is voluntary. However, once you reach the 5th level of the God of War Pagoda, or the 4th level of the Survival Tower, you must enter the Hunting Pagoda once every 3 months. Inside the Hunting Pagoda, you will encounter other members of the Paradise of True Gods. Your mission is to hunt them. Of course, it is also very likely that you will be hunted by them. For every enemy you hunt and obtain their Paradise badge, you will obtain a certain amount of Shinbi. The higher the level of their badge, the more Shinbi you will obtain. The figure of light, who claimed to be a god, explained. Hunting Tower? Other members of the Paradise of True Gods? There should be different levels in there, right? Gu Qingxue asked. The figure of light nodded. Indeed, the Hunting Pagoda has 6 floors, and every 2 floors have a different level. The 1st and 2nd floors are primary, the 3rd and 4th floors are intermediate, and the 5th and 6th floors are advanced. Among them, the 1st, 3rd, and 5th floors are for individual hunting, while the 2nd, 4th, and 6th floors are for team hunting. Accordingly, the badges are divided into 3 levels: primary, intermediate, and advanced. Once you reach the 5th floor, or the 4th floor of the Survival Tower, your badges will be upgraded to primary badges. Once you reach the 7th floor or the 6th floor of the Survival Tower, your badges will be upgraded to intermediate badges. Once you reach the 9th floor, or the 8th floor of the Survival Tower, your badges will be upgraded to the highest level. Different badges have different treatments in the Paradise of Gods. For example, entering the Upanishad Tower costs 10 Shinbi per day for a normal badge, 9 for a primary badge, 7 for an intermediate badge, and 5 for an advanced badge. Are the only ways to earn Shinbi by entering the God of War Pagoda, the Survival Tower, and the Hunting Pagoda? The one who asked the question was Xiao Shiyu. That's right. Apart from these 3 towers, there are no other ways to obtain Shinbi, and Shinbi can't be transferred between people. It's just a number, not a physical object. In the Paradise of Gods, without Shinbi, it's hard to move even an inch. With Shinbi, you can enter the Upanishad Tower to comprehend the profound you want to comprehend. You can also enter the Tower of Time and adjust the time ratio to 1 to 10, or 1 to 100. After staying here for a few years, you'll realize that your progress here is 10 times, or even 100 times faster than outside. Therefore, you must seize every opportunity to earn Shinbi. Following the light figure's explanation, everyone had a new understanding of the importance of Shinbi. In short, Shinbi was a necessity to ensure their progress. An ordinary Paradise of Gods badge would cost 10 Shinbi per day to enter the Upanishad Tower, which meant 300 Shinbi per month. This wasn't a small number. Among them, the one with the most Shinbi was Yi Chun, who only had 29 Shinbi. Ajio had 28 Shinbi. The others either had more than 20 or a dozen Shinbi. The one with the least Shinbi didn't even have a single Shinbi. Therefore, even Yi Chun could only stay in the Upanishad Tower for 2 days. The Tower of Time was even more magical. It could adjust the time ratio to 1 to 10, so 1 day inside was 10 days. If it was adjusted to 1 to 100, then 1 day inside was 100 days. If one stayed long enough, such as 1 month or 3 months, then it would be extremely terrifying. They were all top geniuses, so a few years was enough for them to make rapid progress. With the Tower of Time, they could treat a few years as dozens, or even hundreds of years. However, it wasn't hard to imagine that such a magical Tower of Time would require a lot of Shinbi. The current amount of Shinbi they had wasn't enough. Worthy of the Paradise of Gods. Compared to it, The desolate star pales in comparison. Yi Chen sighed inwardly. Alright, there aren't many rules in the paradise of gods. Now you can choose your own residence. Currently, there are only 380 people in the paradise of gods, so there are more than 100 empty residences. You can choose according to your preferences. However, as the manager of this place, I have to warn you that you are still very weak. Don't have any conflicts with the senior members of the paradise of gods, at least for the time being. I wish you all a pleasant life. After saying this, the light figure turned into specks of light and disappeared. Chapter 1079. The Paradise of God's residence was located in a mountain range. This mountain range had all kinds of environments, such as a small bridge, a red maple forest, a 3,000-foot waterfall, a boundless lake, and a mountain peak. Anyone could find their favorite living environment here. Yi Chen chose a bamboo house next to a small bridge. The bridge was an ancient stone bridge, and the water was a meandering river. Some aquatic plants were growing sparsely on the surface of the river, and a few fish were foraging under the plants. On the south side of the river was a picturesque bamboo house. The bamboo house was emerald green, and emitted a sweet fragrance. Behind the bamboo house were tall and strong green bamboos. At first glance, one couldn't see into the depths of the bamboo forest. Clang! Yi Chen unsheathed the dragon's spring sword, and slashed a sword mark on the hill to the north of the river. The sword mark was 3 zhang deep, and a terrifying sword intent spread out, lingering for a long time. It was a long journey from the mountain range to the center of the paradise of God. Although the gravity in the paradise of God was not as strong as that in the divine star, it was still 1/10 as strong. It was very difficult to fly there. There was a floating track in the center of the mountain range. Every day, 3 chariots of God would pass by this track, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one in the evening. The chariots of God were like sightseeing trains. There were 500 seats on them, no more no less. They moved very fast, and didn't need much power. Once the time was up, the chariots of God would start automatically. Yi Chen and the others got on the chariots of God at noon. Soon, the 11 of them arrived at the gate of the center of the paradise of God. Are these the newcomers? There are 11 of them. There was a group of people standing at the gate. Even the weakest among them had a horrifying aura, as if they were wild beasts. Right then, they were looking at Yi Chen and the others as if they were little kids. I'm afraid this gate is not easy to enter. Lu Wenxiu said. They're just a group of people at the bottom. Ajio's expression didn't change. The 11 of them stopped at the gate. Congratulations on coming to the paradise of God. The one who spoke was a young man with a tall and sturdy body, as tall as Yang Tingyu. What's the matter? Xiao Shiyu said coldly. According to the rules of the paradise of gods, newcomers have to accept the seniors' challenge. We were unlucky and drew the red lot. There was an unwritten rule in the paradise of God. Newcomers had to accept challenges from their seniors. This wasn't to bully newcomers, but rather to let newcomers know that they were no longer the all-powerful geniuses here. They were just normal people, and everything that happened outside had nothing to do with them. Then let's begin. Through various channels, everyone knew that there was such an unwritten rule in the paradise of gods, so they were not surprised. The one who spoke was Zhou Jian. The burly young man smiled. It was obvious that the other side knew about this rule, and was already mentally prepared for it. However, knowing was one thing, but not many of them were actually aware of it. Everyone thought that they were peerless geniuses, and that they might be able to defeat the seniors from the paradise of gods. This was the purpose of the rule. It was to use absolute power to crush their arrogance and wake them up. Follow us. The burly young man and the others led the way. Soon, everyone arrived at a battle arena that looked like a Roman Colosseum. Turning around, the burly young man said, "Rules are dead, but people are alive. We can't work for nothing. How about this? The loser will give the winner 100,000 yuan stones. Of course, don't get me wrong. We haven't fallen to the level of scamming newcomers for yuan stones. You can give it or not, it's all up to you." "I will give it to you." Zhou Jian walked onto the battle arena. "Alright, I will be your opponent." A figure flew into the battle arena. It was a skinny young man. I am Wan Donglei. The skinny young man introduced himself. Zhou Jian. Zhou Jian made the first move. He entered the selfless body state right away and performed a killer move, the Meteor Fist. Countless fist shadows were thrown at his opponent. Too slow. Wan Donglei turned into a shadow and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was right in front of Zhou Jian and kicked him in the chest. Puff. Blood spurted out of Zhou Jian's mouth as he was sent flying. How is this possible? Including Yi Chun, everyone was shocked. His opponent did not use his absolute battling power to blow Zhou Jian away. Instead, he had seen through the flaws of Zhou Jian's meteor exploding fist art, and then appeared in front of Zhou Jian at a shocking speed. Be it speed, power, or eyesight, they are all a couple of times better than Zhou Jian. Yi Chun thought to himself. After being kicked by Wan Donglei, Zhou Jian struggled to get up and threw out another punch. This time it was the Meteor Fist. Do you think there's still a need to fight? Wan Donglei's kick had shattered the fist power of the Meteor Fist and said lightly. Here. Zhou Jian's face turned green. He took out 10 boxes of yuan stones from his storage ring and threw them on the ground. Then he turned around and walked to the audience seating. I am Liao Qing. Who wants to challenge me? Another person appeared. His eyes scanned through Yi Chun and the rest. I will challenge you. Xiao Shi got off the stage. A sword artist. Not bad. Sword artists have better eyesight than warriors at the same level. Liao Qing nodded slightly, looking relaxed. Take this. Taking out the Azure Dragon Sword, Xiao Shiyu threw out a sword attack toward her opponent. It was just a normal sword attack. When one was not clear about the opponent's actual strength, using a killing attack would result in the same situation as Zhou Jian. Ding! Liao Qing took out his dagger and blocked Xiao Shiyu's sword attack. Swoosh! At the same time, Liao Qing also held a dagger in his left hand and threw it out like lightning. Xiao Shiyu could not react in time, and a piece of flesh was cut off from his face. Ding! Dang! Subsequently, Liao Qing attacked Xiao Shiyu from both sides with his daggers, and his attacks were like a torrential storm. Xiao Shiyu only persisted for 5 or 6 rounds before her throat was slit by Liao Qing's dagger, causing blood to splatter out. Thank you for letting me win. Liao Qing stopped attacking. Xiao Shiyu looked at his opponent in a daze. Then, he took out 10 boxes of yuan stones and put them on the ground. After Zhou Jian and Xiao Shiyu, Lu Wenxiu, Yan Feihua, Li Yifeng, Gu Qingxue, Xia Shaoshan, and Yang Ting were defeated one after another. Finally, only Yi Chun Jiu and Lung Fifan had not fought yet. Lung Fifan was the first to fight. I'm Yang Zhan. Coincidentally, I'm also a saber user. Yang Zhan appeared in front of Lung Fifan, with a long saber on his back. This Lung Fifan doesn't look like an ordinary person. All of us here have the power of the 3rd level of the God of War Pagoda. It's already good enough that the newcomers can make it to the 2nd level. There were 10 levels in the God of War Pagoda, representing 10 different levels of combat power. Most of the newcomers had the power of the 1st level. Of course, it wouldn't take long for them to make it to the 2nd level, and it was already good enough that they had the power of the 2nd level. Among Zhou Jian's group of 8, Yan Feihua, Lu Wenxiu, Xiao Shiyu, Li Yifeng, Gu Qingxue, and Zhou Jian had the power of the 1st level, while Xia Shaoshan and Yang Ting had the power of the 2nd level. Clang, 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 sparks flew as the 2 sabers clashed. Yang Zhan was surprised to find that he couldn't take down his opponent in a short time. There were a few times when he thought he had seen through his opponent's flaws, but his opponent had purposely exposed them. This is more interesting. A smile appeared on Yang Zhan's face, and his saber attacks became fiercer and more cunning. The saber is the overlord. Even if it's a dead end, I will still fight for a way out. Lung Fifan was obviously at a disadvantage, but judging from his aura, he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Instead, he was suppressing his opponent. If not for his aura, Lung Fifan would have been defeated long ago. A well-trained saber user. His achievements in the future will be immeasurable. The burly young man was a little envious. Strength is strength. Lose. Yang Zhan sent Lung Fifan's blade of time flying with one slash and severed his head. But a shocking scene happened. Lung Fifan, who had lost his head and the blade of time, slashed at Yang Zhan with an illusory saber in his hands. Both of Yang Zhan's arms were severed at the elbows. It was a draw. Impressive. He has the power of the 3rd level of the God of War Pagoda, as soon as he came in. And it was a draw with Yang Zhan. Yes, although Yang Zhan was a little careless, his power is enough to enter the 3rd level of the God of War Pagoda. There were strong and weak people on the 3rd floor. The strong ones were just a step away from entering the 4th floor, while the weak ones would probably fail the moment they entered the 3rd floor. Me Lu Hu, who will go first? The burly young man smiled and said to Audiobook and Yi Chen, I'll go first. Audiobook jumped into the arena. Be careful. Although I didn't enter the 4th level, I'm only 1 step away. Lu Hu reminded him. Don't worry, I won't be careless. Audiobook knew that these people were the weakest in the paradise of gods, but it didn't mean he could ignore them. Lung Fifan was only a little weaker than him, but he was still at a disadvantage. It was enough to prove these people's power. If Yang Zhan and Lung Fifan's battle was already shocking enough, then Audiobook and Lu Hu's battle was even more shocking. Lu Hu was the strongest among them, and he was only 1 step away from the 4th level of the God of War Pagoda. But Audiobook could fight Lu Hu to a draw. He's really not easy to deal with. Lu Hu frowned slightly. It wasn't that his opponent didn't have any flaws, but he couldn't take advantage of them, because there were 4 of them. If he fought against one of them, he would be attacked by the other 3, unless he could defeat all 4 of them at once, but that was impossible. With his strength, he couldn't do that. Looks like I have to use this move. Lu Hu's body flashed. Every time he flashed, a dozen more Lu Hu would appear. After dozens of flashes, there were hundreds of Lu Hus, and every one of them was vivid and lifelike. Profound meaning of shadow. No, it's the profound meaning of Yin, which is even more profound than the profound meaning of shadow. Yi Chen immediately saw through the meaning of Lu Hu's move. The profound meaning of Yin included the profound meaning of shadow. There was Yin and Yang in the universe, and so did humans. These Lu Hu could be said to be real to a certain extent. They were like the other side of Lu Hu, so it was impossible to tell which was real and which was fake with just eyesight, unless one had a special talent or had also cultivated the profound meaning of Yin. Of course, there must be other ways to tell. Nothing was absolute in this world. It could be seen that Lu Hu's profound meaning of Yin had not been perfected. There were some flaws, but there were too many of them. Trying to find the real one was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Audiobook only lasted for a while before he was defeated. Chapter 1080. This Audiobook is amazing. No wonder he's called King Peerless. They had all heard of Audiobook's name, and Audiobook and the others also knew about them. For example, Lu Hu was from the White Tiger Starfield's Tiger Soul planet. He was ranked 8th on the Heavenly King list, but it was obvious that he hadn't improved as much as Audiobook in the past decade. 10 years ago, Audiobook hadn't become famous yet, so he naturally wouldn't be Lu Hu's match. 10 years later, Audiobook was only slightly weaker than Lu Hu. But from another perspective, those at the bottom of the paradise of gods weren't doing so well. Because they lacked divine coins, their improvement wasn't much faster than those outside. Unless they could reach the 5th level of the God of War Pagoda, or the 4th level of the Survival Tower, they wouldn't be able to get more divine coins. I'm so jealous of you. You're already at the peak of the 3rd level of the God of War Pagoda. It won't be long before you can reach the 4th, or even the 5th level. As for me, I'll probably need another 10 years to reach the 5th level. Do you know? In the past 10 years, except for the first time, I've never left the paradise of gods. It's not that I don't want to go back, but I don't have enough divine coins to pay for it. Lu Hu sighed. Then I'll just make it to the 5th level, Audiobook said. Lu Hu was stunned for a moment, and then whispered to himself, You're right. They didn't know when, but they had developed a dependence on Xinbi. Without Xinbi, they felt like they had lost their will to fight. Little did they know that the reason they were able to enter the paradise of gods wasn't because of Xinbi, but because of their ambition. All right, I've lost to you, but given your strength, I'm afraid you're no match for him. Audiobook threw down 10 boxes of yuan stones and walked back to the audience. No match for him? Lu Hu looked at Yi Chun in confusion. They only had 10 people on their side, while Ajiu had 11. Therefore, he had to fight twice. But Ajiu's words had alarmed him. After Ajiu had lost to Lu Hu, Yi Chun had become everyone's focus. Yi Chun's amazing sword skills had won over Ajiu and the others. Now it was their turn. Step by step, Yi Chun walked to the arena and unsheathed the dragon spring sword. Take this. Chi. A wisp of blood danced in the air as a thin sword mark appeared on Lu Hu's cheek. As for himself, he explosively retreated. If he hadn't dodged fast enough, this sword might have pierced through his forehead. What a fast sword! Not only were Lu Hu and the others shocked, but Ajiu, Lung Fifan, Yang Ting, and the others were also shocked. Little did they know that Yi Chun had used the profound truths of speed in this attack, and the sword in his hand had become the Heavenly King Stage treasure sword, the Dragon Spring Sword. With the two combined, his sword speed had reached a terrifying level. What kind of freak is this? Lu Hu couldn't be more astonished. In the 10 years he had spent in the Paradise of Gods, due to the limited amount of Shinbi, he had only entered the Upanishad Tower a few times. However, he had often played Thunderball with others. Thunderball was a very strange cultivation method. By hitting the ball quickly, it could train one's reaction speed, attack speed, and force exertion skills. Compared to 10 years ago, Lu Hu's inner qualities had improved a lot. His ability to see through flaws was also extraordinary. Wan Dong and Lei Liaoqing had easily defeated Zhou Jian and Xiao Shiyu. Lu Hu was even stronger than the previous two. However, that sword attack of Yi Chun's was terrifying in both speed and trajectory. He didn't even have time to react, let alone block it. Without any hesitation, Lu Hu used the shadow doppelgangers that had defeated Ajiu. The shadow doppelgangers had the profound truths of Yin. Not only did they have the same aura as the real body, but they also couldn't be underestimated. Each doppelganger had 20% of the real body's power. Several hundred shadow doppelgangers stood between Yi Chun and Lu Hu, giving Lu Hu time to counterattack. Momentary glory. Facing hundreds of shadow doppelgangers, Yi Chun only used one sword attack. This sword attack froze the space, and all the shadow doppelgangers froze. The Zhen Yuan contained in their bodies wasn't enough to resist the power of momentary glory. Although Lu Hu himself was extremely powerful, he felt like he was stuck in a swamp. Every move he made was extremely difficult. Passing through hundreds of shadow doppelgangers, Yi Chun suddenly appeared 10 meters in front of Lu Hu. Too scary. Is he still a newbie? Lu Hu's Zhen Yuan burst out, turning into a fierce tiger phantom. This tiger phantom shook its head and tail, looking extremely fierce. Under the impact of the tiger phantom, the power of momentary glory weakened a lot. Lu Hu took this opportunity to counter Yi Chun's momentary glory with a punch. Fierce tiger fist art. Clang. Sparks exploded as Yi Chun's dragon spring sword stabbed into Lu Hu's fist. The sword's blade bent, but the bones in Lu Hu's right arm were also broken inch by inch. Blood splashed out. The dragon spring sword straightened, and Yi Chun used the momentum to jump into the sky, sweeping down with his sword. Puchi! Lu Hu's head flew high into the sky. Yi Chun won. Among all the young sword artists in history, he is at least in the top 10, maybe even the top 5. Yan Feihua sighed. The universe had existed for countless years, and nobody knew how many years Yi Chun had been in the top 10. One could imagine how high Yan Feihua's evaluation of Yi Chun was, and how shocked she was. God of War Pagoda's 4th floor strength. Lu Hu, who had reattached his head with his undying body, looked at Yi Chun, his eyes filled with disbelief. He had just entered the God of Paradise, and he already had the strength of God of War Pagoda's 4th floor. Thank you for letting me win. Putting away the dragon spring sword, Yi Chun cupped his fists. Here are your 100,000 yuan stones. Lu Hu took out 10 boxes of yuan stones and put them on the ground. Yi Chun didn't refuse and put them away. After a while, he was preparing to break through to the 4th sky of life and death realm. At that time, he would need a lot of yuan stones, so it was better to be prepared. What a monster! Luckily, my opponent is not him. Otherwise, I would have been so embarrassed. Wan Dong, Lei Liaoqing, and the rest were speechless. Even Lu Hu, the strongest among them, had lost. They would be trash if they went up. They were all newbies. But why was the gap between them so big? Only Lung Fifan and Ajia were slightly more eye-catching. Lu Hu, why are you so useless? You lost to a newbie. A voice was heard. Everyone looked over and saw a few figures at the entrance of the arena. The one who spoke was a strong young man. Taihe, I lost to him wholeheartedly. How am I useless? Lu Hu said with a frown. A loss is a loss. No need to find excuses. The bulky young man walked down step by step, his eyes landing on Yi Chen. Lu Hu didn't want to argue with him, so he said to Yi Chen, be careful, Taihe has already reached the 4th floor. Yi Chen nodded and looked at Taihe. Please. Since he had appeared, he must have bad intentions. Oh, you took the initiative to challenge me. Alright, I'll give you a chance. Taihe had originally planned to teach Yi Chen a lesson, lest he broke the rules. However, he didn't expect Yi Chen to take the initiative to challenge him. Taihe, don't be careless. The other said to Taihe, I know what I'm doing. Taihe naturally didn't dare to be careless. Since Yi Chen could defeat Lu Hu, he most likely had the power of the 4th floor. Although there were strong and weak people on the 4th floor, he couldn't be careless. Make your move. Taihe's weapon was a crescent halberd. It was more than 3 meters long and looked very sharp. Just as he finished his sentence, Yi Chen's attack had arrived. It was still the fast profound. That moment of glory could only release its power within 3,000 meters. Beyond that, the effect would be almost negligible. It was also the reason why he had approached Lu Hu from the beginning, and it was the same now. Ding! Taihe's battle power was indeed not something Lu Hu could compare with. He lifted the crescent halberd slightly and blocked Yi Chen's sharp sword. Pretty fast. His feet exerted force. Taihe used the sword's power to back off. He realized that it was better to keep some distance from Yi Chen. Otherwise, his crescent halberd wouldn't be able to unleash its power at all. However, in the next moment he realized that his speed had slowed down. Yi Chen's second sword attack came right after. This sword attack made the space freeze. It was the profound meaning of space. No wonder Lu Hu lost. Taihe didn't see the battle between Yi Chen and Lu Hu. He only came in after their battle ended. But don't underestimate me. Anatar realm. Taihe's Anatar realm was the same as Lung Fifan's. He had already touched the 3rd level. Moreover, he was at the peak of the 5th sky of life and death realm, which was 1 sky higher than Lung Fifan. As Taihe's battle power went all out, a majestic power burst out. The space freeze power was immediately repelled. Cold moon cutting the sky. After repelling the space freeze power, Taihe attacked Yi Chen with his halberd. This was his ace attack. A green crescent moon appeared in the void, attacking rapidly. Boom! The sword and the halberd clashed, and Yi Chen backed out dozens of miles. A faint green light lingered around his body, looking extremely sharp. Fortunately, his protective sword intent was powerful enough, so he didn't get hurt at all. Taihe, Lu Hu had said earlier that the loser would have to give the winner 100,000 yuan stones. I wonder if you agree or not. If the opponent didn't agree, Yi Chen didn't plan to continue the battle. He would just admit defeat. Don't tell me you think I will lose to you? Taihe opened his eyes wide. Nothing is absolute in this world. How would you know if you don't try? Yi Chen laughed. Alright, 100,000 yuan stones is nothing in my eyes. I would like to see how you can beat me. Taihe was angered by Yi Chen, and his aura increased again. In front of him, Yi Chen took a deep breath. 3 flowers appeared on his head. 1 red, 1 yellow, and 1 blue. 3-flower Dao. It was the 3-flower Dao that Yuan Emperor had taught to Yi Chen. After several years of cultivation, Yi Chen had already cultivated the 3-flower Dao to the same level as Yuan Emperor. Once he used it, his spirit chi and spirit would multiply, and his battle power would multiply as well. The same momentary glory was performed by Yi Chen again. Not good. The space freeze power has doubled. Taihe felt like he was carrying a huge ancient mountain on his back. Every movement he made was extremely strenuous. Even his bones were groaning, and the Zhen Yuan circulation in his body had slowed down. Puff! Yi Chen's sword was ruthless as it pierced through Taihe's forehead. Chapter 1081. Everyone stared at Yi Chun, including those who came with Taihe. In their eyes, Yi Chun was like the center of the world, giving them immense pressure. And the dragon spring sword in his hand was like the Grim Reaper's weapon. It was an inanimate object, but it made their hearts tremble. I lost. The sword wound on his forehead slowly healed. Taihe looked at Yi Chun in shock. If that sword attack had been fully unleashed, even if he did not die, he would have been severely injured. If it came again, he would definitely die. Of course, this was the paradise of gods. Even if he died, he could be revived. He was not worried about that. Thank you. Yi Chun cupped his fists. A loss is a loss. Here are 100,000 yuan stones. Taihe threw down 10 boxes of yuan stones. Then he said, with your talent, I'm afraid you will soon reach the 5th level of the God of War Pagoda and qualify to enter the hunting tower. By then, there will be many teams inviting you to join. Let me remind you, when choosing a team, you must be careful. If you are not careful, you will die. My good friend died in the hunting battlefield because of his carelessness in choosing a team. His team was completely annihilated. The Paradise of Gods originally had 500 people, but now there are only 380 people. Just know how dangerous it is. With that, Taihe and his friends left. Thank you for the reminder. Yi Chun glanced at his back as he left. What Taihe said is right. We must be extremely cautious in choosing a team. In the battlefield of hunting, everyone is both a hunter and a prey. The stronger the team we choose, the more reasonable the composition of the members, the greater the chance of survival. In these 10 years, I have also lost a few friends in the battlefield of hunting. Lu Hu sighed. I will think about it. Not to mention that Yi Chun did not have the power to reach the 5th level of the God of War Pagoda. Even if he did, he would not do it. He wanted to use Shunbi to increase his power first, and then see if he could reach the 4th level of the life and death realm in a short period of time. When everything was ready, he would try to reach the 5th level and qualify to enter the hunting tower. Then we will leave first. Lu Hu and the others bid farewell. In the center of the Paradise of Gods, there were 2 majestic towers. One was the God of War Pagoda, and the other was the Survival Pagoda. The God of War Pagoda was 10,000 meters tall, and each level was 1,000 meters tall. Of course, this was only from the outside. There was definitely something more to it. How unlucky. I didn't pass through the 4th level again. My Yin Yang True Dragon energy has already been cultivated to the Great Success level. Logically speaking, I should be able to pass through it. I was just a little bit away last time. 2 young men walked out from the entrance of the 1st level of the God of War Pagoda. Me too. At the critical moment, the opponent's strength suddenly erupted. There's no way to block it. The other young man was also quite helpless. These 11 people seem to be newcomers. I don't recognize them. They must be here to challenge the God of War Pagoda. I wonder which level they can reach. I reckon that most of them are on the 1st level. There won't be more than 3 on the 2nd level. This has always been the case. The 2 of them had originally planned to leave, but after some thought, they decided to stay. They wanted to see how strong this batch of newcomers were. Anyway, challenging the God of War Pagoda would not take much time, especially for newcomers. Good luck. Yi Chun was the first to enter the God of War Pagoda's entrance. Good luck, everyone. The other 10 also entered the God of War Pagoda. This was a fiery land of lava. Scarlet flames erupted everywhere, and the sky was dark red. From time to time, purplish-red lightning danced in the sky. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. Standing in the air, Yi Chun scanned the area, searching for his opponent. Rumble! Abruptly, the ground beneath Yi Chun split open. A scarlet hand the size of a mountain grabbed at Yi Chun, accompanied by a towering wave of fire. Lava giant! Yi Chun immediately knew what kind of creature his opponent was. The lava giant was a natural life form with both fire and earth attributes. It was born with boundless strength, and had the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. Even Yi Chun would vomit blood if he was grabbed by the lava giant. Of course, it was fine as long as he was not grabbed. The lava giant's only weakness was the lava heart in its chest. It was a relatively fragile crystal. As long as one had the annihilation crystal, they would be able to kill the lava giant. However, the lava giant was not only extremely huge, but its defense was also very high. Ordinary monarchs could only break the surface of the lava at most. It was extremely difficult to kill it. Unfortunately, its opponent was Yi Chun. Facing this scorching lava hand, Yi Chun unsheathed his dragon spring sword and slashed down. The sword light blurred and vibrated countless times in an instant. Without a sound, the lava hand and the lava arm were split into two. Then, the lava land was also split, revealing the lava giant's corpse. Its lava heart had already been destroyed by Yi Chun's sword light. You have passed the first level. Reward 10 Shinbi. A voice came down from the sky. Buzz! The paradise badge flashed, and a light screen appeared in front of Yi Chun. The light screen showed that he had 39 Shinbi. 10 Shinbi for the first level. Not bad. Many a little makes a mickle. The first level already had 10 Shinbi. The second level would probably not be any less. After all, there were only 10 levels in the entire God of War Pagoda. 5 people walked out from the entrance of the first level of the God of War Pagoda. Just like that, Yi Chun killed one enemy after another, until there was only a Demon King and a Yiksha King left. The Yiksha King's skin was stone gray, and he had a pair of wings on his back. In terms of top combat power, the Yiksha race might not be as strong as the demons, but in terms of average combat power, the Yiksha race surpassed the demons. It was said that there were no weaklings among the demons, but all the Yiksha race were strong. In the universe, the Yiksha race was definitely one of the strongest races. Of course, the demons were the strongest race. So strong. After Audiobook killed 7 enemies, he was finally surrounded. He only lasted 1 round, before he was blasted into pieces by countless light beams, and teleported out of the survival tower. You made it to the 3rd floor? Lin Chun came out with Audiobook. He was very surprised. One had to know that Audiobook's result in the God of War Pagoda was the 3rd floor. And now he was also at the 3rd floor of the survival tower. Didn't this mean that Audiobook's combat power and survival power were equal? Strong people with equal combat power and survival power were 1 in 100 in the paradise of gods. He didn't expect Audiobook to be one of them. Not bad. Audiobook was not proud. Impressive. I have a feeling that a few of your batch of rookies might become famous people in the paradise of gods in the future. Lin Chun was very emotional. No matter which batch it was, Audiobook was the most outstanding one. That Lung Fifan was also very strong. As for that Yi Chun, he was inhuman. Chui Yi's survival power was much stronger than Lin Chun's. He came out after a long while. In the end, only Yi Chun was left. Hey Chui Yi, do you think Yi Chun can pass the 3rd floor? Lin Chun asked. It's a little difficult, but I don't know why. But I feel that his survival power is stronger than his combat power. However, if I were him, I would not choose to pass the 3rd floor, even if my survival power is strong. After all, it's too early to enter the hunting tower now. It's not wise, Chui Yi said in a low voice. That's true. Lin Chun nodded. Just like that, the 12 people waited for Yi Chun outside. After about 5 minutes, Yi Chun came out. Facing everyone's questions, Yi Chun said, I didn't pass the 3rd floor. Actually, he could have passed. As he had never seen the Yiksha King before, Yi Chun had a good fight with him. After killing the Yiksha King, a Demon King could not stop him at all. However, he did not want to pass the 3rd floor and be killed by a Demon King. A total of 219 Shinbi. I should be able to use them for a while. After everyone separated, Yi Chun activated his badge. It showed that he had 219 Shinbi. Before coming to the paradise of gods, Yi Chun had 29 Shinbi. The first floor of the God of War Pagoda had given him 10 Shinbi, 30 Shinbi, and 60 Shinbi. The first floor of the survival pagoda had given him 30 Shinbi, and the second floor had given him 60 Shinbi. If one used an ordinary method to catch the ball, it would naturally cause the ball to go out of control. One had to use the same spinning force to neutralize it. This was not a test of one's reaction speed and attack speed, but one's ability to exert force. Leaping up high, Huang Hengfei smashed Ajiu. Thank you for letting me win. Huang Hengfei landed. A loss is a loss. Here are 10,000 primeval stones. Ajiu took out a box of primeval stones and placed it on the ground. Playing Thunderball required a wager. Under normal circumstances, the wager was 10,000 primeval stones. Of course, if you had a conflict with the other party, you could negotiate with the other party to increase the wager. 100,000, 1 million. As long as you had enough primeval stones, you could bet. In the paradise of gods, playing Thunderball was undoubtedly a popular entertainment activity. It could not only entertain the body and mind, but it could also improve one's quality. Huang Hengfei smiled. The other party's personality was not bad. Although this kind of person was arrogant, there was a level of arrogance. In other words, if a genius didn't have arrogance, then it was because he felt inferior. Yi Chen, since you are here, why not come down and play? Huang Hengfei's eyesight was very good. He immediately saw Yi Chen. He had already seen the video of this batch of rookies. I'll do as you say. Yi Chen indeed wanted to play this unique training program. Be careful, his spinning ball has a very high rotation speed. I have no way of surpassing that speed. Ajiu reminded Yi Chen as they brushed past each other. Understood. Yi Chen nodded. Old rules, you serve first. Huang Hengfei signaled to Yi Chen. Bang! The ball was thrown up, and Yi Chen struck it with his rod. So fast. Many people on the spectator stand were surprised. When Yi Chen threw up the thunderball, his metal rod had already struck out. The two movements were completed at almost the same time, giving people a strong visual impact. Good timing. Huang Hengfei had played the thunderball countless times, and had seen this kind of situation before. He played it down and whipped the thunderball at an even faster speed. Bang 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 bang. After a dozen rounds, Huang Hengfei began his spinning ball attack. Huang Hengfei's spinning ball had a rotation speed that ordinary people couldn't compare with. In the blink of an eye, it was unknown how many times it had rotated. If the rotation speed couldn't reach the spinning speed of the spinning ball, the ball would lose control. Of course, Yi Chen was already mentally prepared. The muscles on his right arm swelled, and Yi Chen's metal rod struck the lower middle of the thunderball. Swoosh! Not only did the thunderball return, but it also produced a flickering arc trajectory, making people unable to see the trajectory of the ball. What? Chapter 1084. Huang Hengfei was even more shocked. There were two reasons for his surprise. First, the spinning ball he had just released had an astonishing speed. In the blink of an eye, it had spun at least 10,000 times. To neutralize this spinning ball, he had to exert an equal amount of rotational force. Second, not only had the other party neutralized the spinning ball, but he had also exerted an unbalanced rotational force on the thunderbolt ball. In other words, the rotational force that the other party had used had far exceeded his. As expected of a monster who reached the 4th level of the God of War pagoda. But that's not enough. Huang Hengfei laughed. His metal rod transformed into dozens of mirages. One of the mirages struck the thunderbolt ball, causing it to turn into a beam of light and shoot toward Yi Chen. Yi Chen instantly caught the trajectory of the thunderbolt ball and struck it with his rod. Swish! The rod missed. The thunderbolt ball seemed to disappear from Yi Chen's senses. The thunderbolt ball disappeared? Impossible. Ajiu and the rest couldn't believe it. The ball didn't disappear. It just sped up. Almost subconsciously, Yi Chen used the inertia of his metal rod to spin his body and appear in front of the thunderbolt ball. He struck it with his metal rod. He caught it. Huang Hengfei frowned. He suspected that the other party had practiced the thunderbolt ball before. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for a newcomer to receive an instant speed ball. What was an instant speed ball? It was actually related to multiple forces. Huang Hengfei's multiple forces were at the late stage of 4th drive. In that ball just now, he had used 3 drive and 1st drive. 3 drive had been used on the thunderbolt ball, while the other 1st drive had been hidden. When the thunderbolt ball was very close to Yi Chen, the hidden 1st drive had instantly erupted, causing the ball's speed to increase. As most people were already used to the ball's previous speed, The eruption of the ball's speed indirectly caused the phenomenon of the ball disappearing. Huang Hengfei swung his metal rod and struck the thunderbolt ball. No, it's an illusion. Huang Hengfei was shocked. He did the exact same action as Yi Chen. He used the inertia of his metal rod to spin his body, appear in front of the thunderbolt ball, and hit it back. That was close. He actually knows an instant speed ball, and he used it in that situation. Huang Hengfei secretly wiped his sweat. Watching the two players play on the court, everyone was dumbfounded. Not to mention Huang Hengfei, he was the captain of a beginner team, so it was natural for him to have this kind of power. Yi Chen was only a newbie, but he had somehow managed to tie with Huang Hengfei, and even saw through the instant speed ball. Is he still a newbie? The long-haired young man who fought with Huang Hengfei before muttered. I also wonder if he's a newbie. However, the difference was that battling had a lot of auxiliary skills, such as protective Jin Yuan, body defense, and all kinds of martial skills. The more auxiliary skills one had, the slower one's inner quality would improve. However, when playing the Thunderball, none of these skills could be used, as they were meaningless. Thus, one would feel the real pressure, and be forced to improve one's inner quality. Pure inner quality. Huang Hengfei did not look at the yuan stones on the ground and said, I am Huang Hengfei, the captain of the Flying Spirit team. When you reach the 5th floor of the God of War Tower, you can consider joining our team. The Flying Spirit team was one of the more powerful teams among the beginner teams. It was also one of the teams that the beginner members of the God Paradise wanted to join the most. I will think about it. Yi Chen faintly nodded. Every other week, Yi Chen would play a few games of Thunderball. Sometimes he would win, and sometimes he would lose. Yi Chen tried not to compete with those who had reached the 5th sky of life and death realm, as he did not have that many yuan stones to lose. For the rest of the time, Yi Chen used it all to cultivate his Zhen Yuan. Being greedy for speed was the most important thing to improve one's cultivation, especially in the life and death realm. Every level of life and death realm was equivalent to building a solid foundation. Only with a solid foundation could one continue to improve. If one's foundation was not solid enough, even a tall building would collapse. It was only a matter of time. Therefore, without 100% certainty, Yi Chen would not try to break through to the 4th sky of life and death realm. He did not want to risk his future. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. Yi Chen felt that he had close to 100% chance of breaking through to the 4th sky of life and death realm. In this half a year, Gu Qingxue, Zhou Jian, Li Yifeng, Xiao Shiyu Lu Wenxiu, and Yin Feihua had all reached the 2nd floor of the God of War Tower. Yang Ting had reached the 3rd floor, and Ajiu had made it to the 4th floor, just like Yi Chen. On the court, Yi Chen and Ajiu were having a showdown. Ajiu had not only improved his strength, but also his skills. Once his skills improved, it would not be easy for Yi Chen to defeat his opponent. Moreover, Ajiu was also at the 4th sky of life and death realm, one sky higher than Yi Chen. Therefore, in the past month, Yi Chen and Ajiu had 3 wins and 1 loss. This was the 5th time. Looks like this is my 2nd win in a row. Peng. The thunderball flickered in the air, sometimes to the left and sometimes to the right. A smile appeared on Ajiu's face. Not necessarily. A phantom appeared on Yi Chen's body. The phantom waved his rod, and the real body followed. Peng. The thunderball that had escaped was whipped by the real body and shot out. Instant speedball. Chapter 1085. Breaking through to the 4th layer brought Yi Chen not only a sharp increase in his cultivation base, but his sword domain also advanced from the peak of the 4th layer to the 5th layer. Although the 5th layer and the peak of the 4th layer seemed to be only a step apart, the gap between them was immeasurable. This was because the sword domain contained the sword rule. With each layer, the sword rule would become more perfect. Legend had it that once the sword domain reached the peak of the 9th layer, one would possess a trace of Sword God's power, and Sword God grasped the sword rule. His Zhen Yuan had become several times purer, and his sword domain had advanced from the peak of the 4th layer to the 5th layer. His strength had increased tenfold. And the difference from before was like the difference between heaven and earth. I can challenge the War God Tower and the Survival Tower now. During this year, Yi Chen had used up the remaining 90 Shinbi on comprehending the Wood Profound. Unfortunately, it was still a step away from reaching perfection. Apart from Wood Profound, he still needed to improve the Thunder and Shadow Profounds. Therefore, he was in dire need of Shinbi. Regarding the slow and fast power Upanishad, and the fast power Upanishad, the Paradise of God didn't have such a power Upanishad tower. They weren't simple power Upanishads. War God Tower's 4th floor. Yi Chen's opponent was a horned demon king with a cultivation base of 6th layer life and death realm. There was an insurmountable gap between 6th and 7th layer life and death realm. 7th layer life and death realm could grant one the title of emperor. This title was not only in terms of title, but also in the emperor mark. The emperor mark was extremely mysterious and related to the selfless realm. After breaking through the selfless realm, one could condense their own emperor mark. Therefore, reaching the 7th sky of life and death realm was as hard as reaching the sky. No one knew how many warriors had been stuck at the 6th sky of life and death realm, unable to make any progress. This had led to the difference in strength among the 6th sky of life and death realm king warriors. The weak ones might not even have 1/10 of the power of the powerful ones. The horned demon king before him was not at the bottom of the 6th layer life and death realm, but it was only 2 or 3 times more powerful than them. Roar! The horned demon king's demonic power erupted as it fiercely charged at Yi Chen. Facing the horned demon king, Yi Chen first released his sword domain, and then slashed out. Puchi! The unicorn demon king's body froze. And in the next moment, it was sliced into nothingness by the dense sword chi. Past the 4th floor. Reward 100 Shinbi. The reward for the 3rd floor was 60 Shinbi, and the 4th floor was 100 Shinbi. Paradise badge upgraded to primary badge. The 5 fingers of his left hand opened, and 5 fluctuating sword chi converged together. Yi Chen directly destroyed the remaining half of the Yiksha king's body. 5th level passed. Reward 300 Shinbi. After passing the 5th level, Yi Chen's number of Shinbi increased to 400, which was not a small number. On the 6th level of the God of War Pagoda, the opponent became the evil king of the evil spirit race. The evil spirit race was a very strange race. In Elysium, the evil spirit race was suppressed by the Elysium, so they could not display their strangeness. The strangeness of the evil spirit race lay in their life structure and inconceivable evil arts. The evil spirit race was different from other races. They did not have the ability to reproduce, and every single one of them was born on an evil altar. It was said that there was a most primitive evil altar in the evil spirit world, and that was the origin of the evil spirit race. They were born with immortal bodies, and they were immune to most negative effects. Although their race was not as strong as the Yiksha race, even the demons were not willing to provoke this race. As for the evil arts of the evil spirit race, they were inconceivable. Resurrection, curses, death, life transfer, and possession were all kinds of terrifying evil arts. It could be said that the evil spirit race was the most difficult race to kill. Death Halo. As soon as he appeared, this evil king gave Yi Chen a death halo. Once enveloped by the death halo, one's essence, chi, and spirit would continuously disappear until one died. Looking at the gray halo that suddenly appeared on his body, Yi Chen frowned. If the evil spirit race of Elysium was also this terrifying, they would have won even more miserably. Immortal protection. The immortal sword intent exploded, and the death halo collapsed. Facing the immortal sword intent of the 7th order, Yi Chen was immune to all evil, and no negative effects could affect him. Autumn blade falling rain. Seeing that the death halo was ineffective, the evil king pulled out his evil blade and slashed at Yi Chen. So fast, Yi Chen waved his sword to block, but his whole body was sent flying. Shadow of death. Suddenly Yi Chen's body froze. Countless shadow tentacles shot out from under his feet and wrapped around his body. These shadow tentacles were formless and intangible, but they had unimaginable power. Yi Chen could not break free even if he used his true yuan. The immortal protection sword intent could only protect his body. and it could not destroy all the shadow tentacles at once. Qi, the evil king, swung his blade, and the blade light covered the whole world. A cold light flashed in Yi Chen's eyes, and he pushed the instant sword domain to the limit. Instantly, the speed of the blade light's attack slowed down. Taking this opportunity, Yi Chen used the 3 flowers borrowing Dao.